Ecuador's National Assembly granted a 10-day extension for the commission investigating the corruption scheme of the government of President Lasso to hand in a formal report. Russian State Duma unanimously passed a law suspending the country's participation in the Administrative Arms Reduction Treaty. And in Palestine, at least 9 were killed in the city of Nablus after a new incursion of Israeli troops in the West Bank. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Peruvian Public Prosecutor's Office announced that the U.S. State Department has granted the extradition of former President Alejandro Toledo for crimes of corruption and money laundering. The Public Prosecutor's Office said that the case was brought to the attention of the U.S. Department, which officially granted the extradition of the former president for his participation in the so-called Lavallato case. The Office of International Judicial Cooperation and Extraditions of the Public Prosecutor's Office has made the necessary arrangements with national and international authorities for the execution of the extradition warrant. Peru had originally made the extradition request in 2019 and had asked for a 35-year prison sentence for the former president in line with the Lavallato case. Ecuador's National Assembly approved a 10-day extension on the deadline for a report by the Commission investigating the corruption scheme of the government of Guillermo Lasso. The extension was approved by the Parliament on a virtual session with 108 votes in favor, 20 against, and 7 abstentions. The group of 7 Assembly members investigating the so-called Encuentro case had planned to deliver the report this Wednesday. However, they asked their colleagues for more time. With the new deadline, the final report must be delivered on Friday, March 3rd, and will include conclusions and recommendations, including the possible impeachment of President Guillermo Lasso. The Encuentro case looks into the alleged corruption in state-owned enterprises, together with its possible links with the Albanian mafia. The Ecuadorian Attorney General's office informed on Wednesday that it will prosecute former President Lenín Moreno in the bribery case known as NAM Papers. The prosecutor now called the case as Sino-Hydro because it is an alleged corruption structure around the construction of the Coca-Cola St. Clair hydroelectric project developed by the Chinese company. The Attorney General, Diana Salazar, requested the National Court of Justice to carry out the hearing of charges for the alleged crime of bribery against 37 people, including the former president and some close families. The amount of the alleged bribery would be around $76 million. The version of the prosecutor's office is that these tens of millions in bribes would have been delivered by Sino-Hydro and channeled through third parties using a false image of services, consulting and representation, and paid by means of gifts, checks and transfers. On Wednesday, Brazil's Justice Ministry extends the investigation in the case of Marielle Franco to the federal police 5 years after her murder. Brazil's Minister of Justice, Flávio Dino, assured the government is doing everything possible to clear up the murder of Councilwoman Marielle Franco. Also, the national government ordered the federal police to open a new investigation for this case in order to expand the collaboration between institutions and to know which criminal organization is behind the murder. For the moment, there are 2 military policemen arrested for this crime: Ronnie Lessa, author of the shots, and his partner Elcio Queiroz, who was driving the vehicle in which they were transported the night of the fact. Marielle Franco was a Brazilian politician, feminist and human rights activist, murdered on March 14, 2018 after delivering a speech in the north of Rio de Janeiro. On Wednesday in Bolivia, the Vice Minister of the Environment, Maggie Herrera, announced that the government is organizing a technical roundtable on water to discuss its preservation and distribution in the region suffering from drought. Bolivia, as a result of the La Niña phenomenon, suffers droughts mainly in the highlands and the Chaco region, while floods are registered in the east of the country. In view of this situation, the Bolivian authorities will discuss measures to preserve the vital liquid available, increase reserves, and improve the coverage on a national scale. In 2022, Bolivia's 9 departments were mainly affected by drought, and 358 municipalities were affected by various adverse weather phenomena, while 171,800 families were affected and over 4,000 tons of humanitarian aid were delivered. In Madagascar, Cyclone Freddy has left 4 people dead and more than 17,000 people homeless, according to preliminary official data. The data was provided by the Risk and Disaster Management National Office. Other than the 4 fatalities and the 17,000 people left homeless, there are 3,300 flooded houses and up to now 11,000 people displaced and housed in emergency shelters. The cyclone made landfall in the Mananjahari area on Tuesday, February 21st, and continued its westward path. The country is still recovering from last year's cyclone Batsirai. According to official figures, Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world and has been suffering from months from a drought that has led to malnutrition and famine. The Ministry of the Interior of Spain decreed on Wednesday an alert for snowfall and low temperatures in several provinces of the north and center of the country. The General Directorate of Civil Protection and Emergencies of the Ministry of Interior decreed an alert for snow and low temperatures in large areas of the northern and central regions of the country. Prospects suggest that on Thursday there will be a marked drop in temperatures with values below the usual for the time of year. Authorities recommended civilians to check the state of the roads when traveling and to check the vehicles, as well as to travel with a full tank, carry winter tires or chains, and to have cell phones with spare batteries or car chargers. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The U.S. plans to supply Ukraine with special kits to convert free-fall bombs into GPS-guided projectiles. According to Bloomberg media outlet, these are the modern versions of the Joint Direct Attack Munition kits made by Boeing Company, which increase the range of the unguided bombs to more than 72 kilometers. The device can be attached to bombs weighing 970 kilograms. And the Pentagon reported it will supply Ukraine with precision-guided aerial munitions as part of a $460 million military aid package the country will send to Kiev. The kits in question are used in the U.S. Air Force and Navy and were sold to more than 26 countries. On Wednesday, Russian State Duma unanimously passed a law suspending the country's participation in the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. Russian lawmakers approved a bill submitted by President Vladimir Putin in which Moscow will temporarily suspend its participation in the Strategic Offensive Arms Treaty, the last nuclear agreement signed by Russia and the United States. In an explanatory note attached to the bill, lawmakers state that the agreement, which was meant to cut in half the number of nuclear weapons deployed around the world, was supposed to allow both parties to carry out inspections in order to ensure compliance. According to the note, the United States has failed to fulfill its obligations under the treaty in this area of activity. The United Nations Security Council made on Tuesday the request of Russia to discuss the recent investigations that point to the United States as the alleged perpetrator of the acts of sabotage against the Nord Stream gas pipelines on September 26, 2022. Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nevencia, suggested to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres the creation of an independent commission to investigate the explosive attack against Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2 gas pipelines. Nevencia stressed that it is strange that Germany and the Nordic countries which are involved in the investigations had not previously requested this meeting. In this context, journalist and professor Jeffrey Sachs claimed that the sabotage was perpetrated by U.S. divers and urged Sweden to share the findings of its investigation. In Russia, the death toll after a fire on a building in central Moscow on Tuesday night has risen to 7. In addition to the deceased, 9 additional people, including a child, were injured in the event. The emergency services reported that the fire occurred on Mesnuna Rodnanya Street in downtown Moscow. The Russian Investigative Committee confirmed the investigation about the event, considers several versions, including the possibility of arson. Authorities state that investigators have examined the scene, ordered forensic and technical tests, and questioned witnesses and hotel managers. Likewise, they added that official documentation has been confiscated and is being studied. On Wednesday, China sharply criticized a visit to Taiwan by U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for China, Michael Chase. When asked about the visit, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Su Fengliang said China resolutely opposes any official interaction and military collaboration between the U.S. and Taiwan. In this way, Xu said that efforts by Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party to cement the island's independence with foreign assistance are doomed to failure. For their part, the Pentagon spokesperson did not comment directly on Xi's visit, repeating that their commitment to Taiwan is rock solid and contributes to the maintenance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait and within the region. China considers Taiwan part of its territory, although the sides split amid a civil war in 1949.
There's only one China in the world. Taiwan is part of China. China firmly opposes any form of official interaction and military contact between the U.S. and China's Taiwan region. We urge the U.S. to abide by the One China principle and stop using Taiwan to contain China. The Democratic Progressive Party authorities attempt to collude with external forces in pursuit of the Taiwan independence separatist agenda will not succeed.
On Wednesday, at least 2 people were killed and 57 others remain trapped after a coal mine collapsed in the Inner Mongolia autonomous regions of northern China. Local authorities said that the incident occurred in the town of Alxa while these individuals were working inside the deposit. Chinese President Xi Jinping urged to redouble efforts to find as many workers alive as possible while protecting property and social stability. Meanwhile, the local government deployed 334 specialists in the rescue work along with drones and other necessary equipment for these purposes. China in 2022 launched a campaign to supervise the safety systems in all its mines and check whether they comply with measures to protect their employees and prevent explosions, cave-ins, and other lethal events, which are recurrent and always leave a high death toll. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Palestine, Israeli troops killed at least 9 locals in the city of Nablus after a new violent incursion in the West Bank. According to local sources, about 80 Palestinians were also reported wounded by the brutal assault in some Nablus neighborhoods. The wounded are currently receiving medical attention at the city's hospital. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 4 of the wounded are in serious conditions and 2 in very critical conditions. 2 journalists were also wounded by live bullets while covering the Israeli incursion. The Red Crescent in Nablus said that most of the fatalities resulted from the Israeli army hindering the ambulances from reaching and evacuating the wounded in the old city. On Wednesday, Palestinian Authority spokesman Nabil Abu Rudeina said Israel's plans to reach individual agreements with Arab countries while violating the rights of the Palestinian people will not bring peace to the Middle East. Rudeina said real peace comes through recognition of the rights of the people. Commenting on statements by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing that he would first seek agreements with Arab nations and then act against Iran, Rudeina said that those words showed Tel Aviv's true intentions of ignoring any peace agreement based on international legitimacy. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and expatriates condemned the recent attacks by settlers against citizens living in the occupied West Bank. The Foreign Ministry also warned about the escalation of violence by settlers, which is considered a direct result of Israel's government strategy to expand Israeli settlements in Palestinian land. Pakistan's National Assembly unanimously passed a money bill aimed at raising tax revenues in order to fulfill IMF demands to unlock a $1.2 billion loan facility. The Finance Bill 2023, or mini-budget, was approved in the lower house of Parliament days after the IMF urged the country to generate $630 million during the fiscal year ending June. The new bill increases sales tax from 17 to 25% on luxury items, while the general sales tax has been raised from 17 to 18%. Pakistan is currently facing severe economic challenges, including a worsening balance of payment crisis, shrinking foreign exchange reserve, and higher inflation rate. The country, facing a shortage of foreign reserves, secured a $6 billion IMF bailout in 2019, which was increased by another $1 billion last year following historic floods in the country. However, the international entity suspended disbursements in November last year due to government's failure to meet its demands. On Wednesday, the World Women's Summit 2023 concluded in the United Arab Emirates. Inclusion, diversity, and equality were the words that marked the debates of this meeting in Abu Dhabi. The delegates and world leaders at the event called for leaving behind the confrontation between East and West in the debate for women's rights and gender equality. They also advocated finding common grounds to advance women's leadership and confront discriminatory policies. During the meeting, the need to respect Eastern cultures and societies and to take into account regional perspective in pursuit of gender equality was also discussed. The event commemorated the 100th anniversary of women gaining voting and election rights in this Persian Gulf nation. The Nigerian government deployed its security forces at a checkpoint in Awka in the country's southeast Anambra state ahead of the February 25th presidential elections. More than 90 million Nigerians are registered to vote on Saturday to elect a successor to President Muhammadu Buhari, who is stepping down after 8 years at the helm of Africa's largest economy. Candidates for the Federal Parliament, the House of Representatives and Senate will also be on the ballot sheet. The country is facing multiple security threats, including jihadist insurgents in the northeast and kidnapping gangs in the northwest. South Africa commemorated the Armed Forces Day as joint naval exercises with Russia and China continued in the Indian Ocean. In an event held at Richards Bay, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa hailed the men and women in uniform for their contribution to the social and economic development of the country. During his speech, President Ramaphosa, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force, urged soldiers to do much more than defend the sovereignty, constitutional democracy and order of the nation. The event took place in the framework of the joint naval drills between Russia, South Africa and China, known as MOSI II. In Cuba, premium cigar brands Monte Cristo, Bolivar and Partagas are set to hold the 23rd Habano Festival, scheduled for late February in Havana. The organizers announced that the Cuban capital will host smokers from all over the world together with tobacco sector specialists from different markets from February 27th to March 3rd. Live music, gastronomy, and the best of Cuban culture will once again flood the halls of Havana's Palacio de las Convenciones, as well as the venues planned for participants' visits. The Habanos Festival will have an in-person edition after the 2-year impact of COVID-19. Attendees from more than 110 countries will get a first-hand look at the novelties that the international corporation Habanos SA will present during the festival. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.